Welcome back, y'all, to Solo Media. We're back for episode 4 of The Boys of season 5, the final season of The Boys on Prime Video. Guys, this was a very interesting episode. Again, definitely diving into, again, Christian nationalism and stuff, which definitely want to talk about how far extreme, but also timely. Again, this episode has been, again, are The Boys the new Simpsons of today? Who knows? Jay King, what was your thoughts in terms of now that Homelander is kind of getting this epiphany from last week's episode that now he wants to be God, not like the savior. He is the savior, he not been blessed by God or whatever. No, he is God himself, and trying to work on getting the world to accept his new image of himself.
I'm just surprised it took 5 seasons for this man's ego to become as bloated as it has. And I think it more just comes from a place of like fear because it's like, oh, I'm getting older. If I don't get this V1, I'm going to die out while my father and anyone else that does have V1 in them is going to still be alive and all that shit. And again, the whole divine intervention or, the meeting that he told Firecracker that he had with the weird image of Madeline Stillwell last episode, like he's really just lost it at this point. Like hell, even with that conversation he has with Butcher later, where he's like nearly dying, like he's still not giving up on the fact of like, oh, I am the savior, I'm the one that's gonna bring a divine future for everyone, and everyone who doesn't follow me is gonna get lasered in the head and all that shit. He has completely, we thought he had lost it multiple seasons ago, but no, he has wholeheartedly, undoubtedly lost every freaking screw, and those screws are down in the gutter because there's no fixing this brain here. He has lost it to the fact that his own father doesn't want him around anymore.
Because with that, I feel like, yeah, we see the point that Homelander's breaking, but this now he has the full epiphany that he is the Lord and Savior, and how everybody now is trying to drink the Kool-Aid, or milk, I should say, in this case, and how complicated that, and how blinded devotion that not only to himself, but Firecracker, the old father, and other people in the media team is trying to see what we can do. Let's create a new Bible. Let's create a new church in his name. And unfortunately, that's happening right now in our culture today. Unfortunately, just in terms of how this blind devotion, when we know that all of this is BS, right? What's going on? And that Christian nationalism side of it, and even as someone who's Christian myself, is just kind of like, yeah, making it more patriotic, and less about Jesus, quote, with this case, making it about idolatry, making it about somebody else, just for the sake for them to receive glory, not actually seeking true salvation. Phil, I just want to know your thoughts in terms of even how this episode with Ashley and old father and everybody just trying to, and then Firecracker herself, who was supposed to be the Christian woman, riding the wave and everything, and she is also trying to basically formulate an idea to get the public, when they know that the public's not going to accept him as the Lord and Savior. So what was your thoughts on that, in just terms of that think tank that honestly was a freaking disgrace?
I mean, to kind of touch on what you said in regards to how it becomes less about the faith and more about the image, and all about the prodigal being, it's just kind of sick in a way. And when it comes to that, what happens with Ashley and O Father, that is a very clear, deliberate homage in terms of like the thought process of it all, of going into putting on this facade of it being about the faith, but ultimately it's all for the gain, it's all for the monetary acquisition, it's all for the power. And I think I say it every week, I said it with Daredevil, art imitates life and vice versa. But I also think it's interesting that she's got that other voice in the back of her head, literally telling her, it's the conscience, it's the Jiminy Cricket, like, what you're doing is really not right, it's fucked in a certain way. And you can't help but like look around and see so many people praise a specific individual while claiming to be, you know, a good faith Christian, which, if you're actually paying attention to what's going on in the world and you see the person that you're idolizing, if you actually believe anything he says, more power to you, sure, but anyone with a brain can look at this show, look at the real world parallels, and either laugh but also start to cry, because that's what the world has come to. And honestly, I mean, you know, you can't help but laugh. And I also, it really helps that the show really has some really well placed you know, quips in regards to, like, you know, just the insults they throw around to people and the way they talk about certain things. It's just it's just really snappy writing that you're never going to get from, say, a you know, PG-13 Marvel or DC project.
Yeah, that I think to that extent of too, also like the tiptoeing around the subject and actually make it the satire of it all, of actually just showing like no, it's a joke, but it also there's some truth to it. That's why it's funny. Even like the show like Righteous Gemstones on HBO, which I loved. You know, basically the stereotypical white televangelized family and who are millionaires, and what that do behind the scenes and all that stuff like that, right? It is hilarious, but we know that to be true. But with this here, it just kind of get a more, I say, even sadder or disappointing, you know, depiction of it, because it now also was affecting children. Because now we see that, you know, Starlight, as she, you know, she dipping away, we didn't know where she was going, and we find out, oh no, she's going to, you know, see her father. And she knew where her father was, and then saying, like, in this case, you know, she just wants to talk to him, but not realizing, oh wait, she got a brother, a half brother, and he has another family, and that all adds another emotional weight. And then you find that same Homelander bot, you know, indoctrination is now poisoning the half brother mind and everything. And then while the parents are actually nice people, hey, stay and take a shower, here's some cookies, hey, you want to stay here longer a little bit so we can have a talk, have dinner, you know, while the brother is just a teenager as he is, just being indoctrinated on social media and stuff, doesn't know what from right or wrong, right? What's being told. And then having a realistic scene of when people like, hey, I'm part of the armed forces, and yet I have locked up people because they didn't go, you know, they go against the status quo, and then they haven't returned back to their families. I can't cost that, right? And there's people who are literally in those same predicaments where they can't compromise, you know, their integrity for the sake of the safety of their families, or just for sake of stability, you know, and regardless of administration. And it's insane. But again, kind of pushing to this fascist level, you know, depiction of a world that unfortunately we might be heading towards if we're already here. That's and I think, to me, that scene with whole scene with Starlight and her father, and I think the writing of her father really impressed me. And I want to know your thoughts as J King, just because they could easily made this just like the dad that wanted nothing to do with Starlight, whatever, but actually like, no, I've been watching you for years, and I just, you know, I didn't agree with your mother, whatever, but I never hated you, never, like, you know, I still loved you. And actually, definitely, he stood up and protected her, even against his old friend who was at the door when the cops were called. What was your thoughts on that?
Well, I am glad of the route that they decided to go. Well, first off, I'm just glad they didn't kill the father or any other member of the family. I almost thought it was going to go that route, you know, with the, you know, just the way it was set up. But no, I am very glad at the way that they had decided to write Starlight's father, which makes sense, especially when you think back to her mother, and especially how her mother was in the early seasons of The Boys. It's like, yeah, it makes sense why he would leave. It's like, you know, he couldn't talk her out of it, nor could he at the moment talk Annie out of it. Yeah, he feels like he probably should have tried more, but, you know, it makes sense why he decided to say, I can't do this. Already saw the writing on the wall, already saw where things could go before most of us saw where things could go, you know, with this show and in this universe, and just decided, yep, nope, I can't be a part of this, and, you know, dipped out, ended up having another family. But still, at the end of the day, he is a good father. Like, he shows that he cares. Like, as you said, he stood up to his other cop friend when it could have gone south very easily. Like I was almost worried that the father or the brother or the father's new wife was going to end up dead, but no, 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 no. It's like it didn't end up that way. And yeah, I'm just extremely impressed with the way that they decided to do it. Also, I do need to note the fact that, someone that's not seen in a public light having a sibling that calls the cops on them. Very X2. I'm just gonna say that. Very X2. I kind of have flashbacks to that, but thankfully it did not go that route or even worse. But I think the scenes when it came to Annie and her family, or her now old and new family that she got in this, were some of my favorites in here, because it was a level of maturity that I didn't know they were going to go for, because we never know with this show. But it's like, thankfully they did go a route that I'm just like, okay, cool. And hopefully she does get to see them again, the comics wise, probably, but in the show, we'll see.
I just felt, for me, that was really powerful. It's just the fact of just seeing the dad in this time where we're in his final season, that no, your family's actually not messed up. Like, this just have messed up situations, and having a sense of forgiveness that was really real and raw and authentic. And to me personally, I just thought it was really again, I just thought it was very human, and I really appreciate they did that. But going into, even after the events of last week's episode with Ryan, basically getting his butt kicked, and that, Butcher's like, listen, I told you, hey, you ain't just jumping the gun and trying to end this stuff. And then he's being hard-headed and saying, like, and then he disappears. We don't know where he went. We don't know how long it's going to be. Probably we'll see him again before the final episode. But yeah, he's kind of doing his own thing after he just got his butt kicked. But and we go into the main conflict of this episode, is that they're also trying to find V1, and they go to this old military base that basically was experimenting on V1 years ago, which been abandoned, which is on these files, XYZ, wink wink, and that have been redacted, allegedly. My name's alleged. But yeah, and then now as they get closer and closer, they start to sense the atmosphere of this world, of this area, changing. Whereas, like, there's a lot of dead animals, there's no animals, no life going on, and they're going deeper. As they go deeper, they realize they see basically something that's giving the sense of The Last of Us. And we get a name drop in this episode, of where this environment is actually, these spores are affecting people and their emotions. And now everybody who comes near it is turning against each other. And in more ways than one, on both sides of the conflict. But yeah, Phil, what was your thoughts on that, in terms of just them going to this old military base, and basically, but the environment is kind of affecting their emotions, but then yet also these emotions are actually bringing up stuff that they have to deal with internally that they might be already been feeling with each other, and or they could just been seeing the worst of themselves and how they come out of it. What was your thoughts?
I mean, it's The Last of Us. If I'm being honest, I think I was more invested in the plot with Annie and her family as opposed to some of this stuff, because this kind of retreads territory where we get, it almost comes to like, okay, the crew has a fucking problem, and then they split up because the problem doesn't get solved in the way that they all want it to. But this time it was a little bit different, because it's literally like them at their worst, because it's literally just the boilerplate finally busting off, and they're all just getting their pent up aggression out at each other, even though without even realizing it. And the fuck part is, the only one who actually realizes what's going on is Frenchie, and it's almost like a Joker super sanity kind of situation where everyone else is affected by the thing except Frenchie, because Frenchie's brain chemistry is so much more complicated and so already adverse to a lot of different things. He's almost immune to all this anger, because if you look at all the other characters half the time, he's the one who's usually pissed off the most, as opposed to the other ones. So now he had, as he says in the episode, I don't want to be the leader, and this is why, right? And you just see them all just go to town on each other, and it's it was going to happen. I mean, the show's done that for the last 5 seasons, but this time it felt a little bit more personal, because the stakes are at an all-time high with wanting to get the V1 before Homelander, because obviously if Homelander gets the V1, then he's going to become invincible, which I kind of doubt and wonder about, because if Soldier Boy, who is literally invincible to this shit and he can, live for however long. He just sits there and mopes at the end of the episode telling Homelander to fucking murder him. I'm just like, well, at that point, if you have the V1 in you and Homelander can murder you, it would stand to reason that anyone who is as powerful as Homelander could probably still kill Homelander if he has the V1 in his blood. So I don't know about that, but overall, when it comes to just that, that core element of the boys' crew, just kind of getting at each other's throats, it made for some very interesting, like, oh, who's going to die? And we still haven't gotten that yet, but I'm still pretty convinced at least a few of them will go by the end of the season. It's just a matter of like how and when. If they are going to go out, they're probably going to go out like, gangsters. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, because as we get into the ending of the conflict of this episode here, we also getting a different side of there was a this what we call uranium that's actually affecting soups. That's not the virus, but it basically able to subdue people. It can kill humans instantly or whatever, but is able to actually affect soups and basically kind of give them like a stomach virus, only temporary to hold them. But yeah, I know it was interesting to kind of see a Homelander in that state. In fact, that Soldier Boy locked him up in there and stuff. But we sense that there's a deeper and connection going on with him and Clara and with Stormfront, because there was a conversation that was mentioned about Stormfront that, hey, I guess we messed with the same girl. But every time her name comes up, it's something that you see his attitude start to change, or he has a look in his face that know that she meant something to him. I don't know your thoughts, J King, as we kind of get into the later end of this episode, just with that, just with how Stormfront have a bigger impact on Soldier Boy than we realize. Given
the fact that the whole spores thing that was happening in there was being caused by another person that he knew, and while he was having the whole front of like, oh, I'm bigger than you, when everything was taken out, he was breaking down and actually emoting like, it was hurting him. I would not be surprised if there is more about him and Stormfront that we don't know about, that we'll obviously find out about in, Vought Rising. But in terms of just like this season, I think it's definitely going to the case of like Soldier Boy definitely is putting up a front when it comes to, his whole very colorful, way of speaking, plus, the way he treats people. But at the end of the day, as even Homelander said, especially when we find out a little bit about like, the type of person Soldier Boy was before he got experimented with V1, there's definitely a side to him that he's trying not to show, but is starting to peer through. And it might even have to do with the case of just like, oh, I am immortal and I kind of don't want to be. I don't want to be a man out of time, or I don't want to be like, the only one from my time that's still alive, and anyone else that is like old as crap or, dead. So I think both the reality of everything and plus just who he truly is starting to settle in. And we might start getting more of that as these episodes go on. We might getting more of like the true person Soldier Boy actually is. I mean, it's not going to undo the multiple terrible things he's done, but at least it might show a more empathetic side than we possibly thought was out of the guy.
Personally, I thought it was just kind of showing just another dimension to Homelander's character that we might not know, but we do know and speculate, possibly, but we haven't got the full clear answer that Stormfront might be his mother. But even though the part of his conception was still like, oh yeah, it was an embryo, but like what DNA came from, we know he probably gave it to just a regular woman that that carried the pregnancy, but it just kind of sensing that maybe Stormfront is probably Homelander's mother. I might be jumping the gun here, but I don't know, Phil, am I wrong? Do you think am I wrong?
I think it's a pretty reasonable conclusion to come to.
Yeah, but that's going to be disgusting as fuck if that's the case.
Oh yeah, it's going to be pretty gnarly if it does come out that she is in fact his mother, and he did the thing with her in season 2. So yeah, it's going to be pretty gnarly. It's going to be pretty gnarly, like if Soldier Boy finds her corpse and sees what's become of her, and then he's really going to be like miffed at Homelander
and Ryan.
And Ryan, definitely.
Yeah, because personally, I don't know, that would be crazy, but I didn't want to jump the gun on it and basically see if that comes to conclusion. But One thing I will say, even at the ending of this episode, definitely set the stage again for just a greater conflict after what Soldier Boy did, and that Homelander could have killed him, but he chose not to. Um, I don't know what were you guys' thoughts on that. It seems like no, I still need you for the end game here. But yeah, well, I don't know. What are your thoughts, J King?
I think the only reason he didn't kill him is because of the fact it's like, oh, okay, V1 isn't here, so we got no time to waste in trying to continue to look for it. But I think also just the fact that he had seen Soldier Boy as, oh, I say all these, swearing words, and I make so many dick jokes and all that shit. But this is the first time he's actually seen his father be emotional and cry. Like, I think a part of that probably did shake him, and he was just like, yeah, I don't know what the hell this is. I'd rather laser you if you were saying something in your usual tone, but you're not. So, and the virus is not, sorry, and the V1 is not here. So I got to keep looking. I don't got time for this. It's just there's bigger things to do here than you sort of thing. Well, that kind of, bite him in the ass, who knows? But I think mainly was just that getting to him, just like, is this Soldier Boy? What the hell?
Yeah. I'm really intrigued to see what's going on, but I will say this, that not to tease anything, but next week episode was one of my favorites because it definitely gets into the more deeper understanding of what each of these characters are going through in real time. And I think, again, it's setting the stage up for a very satisfying finale as we get into the penultimate last 3 episodes of this season. Very interesting, and also setting up the stage for possibly the setup for Vought Rising, because even in this episode too, you're just getting more of like Soldier Boy has history with some people, and names are being dropped of just about V1 in that era generation, and stuff like that. So I'm very intrigued to see what we can see coming from that. I don't know when Vought Rising is coming out down the line, but yeah, I already know it's been shot and completed, but I'm excited for it. But other than that, I thought this was a really good episode. The Starlight stuff was my favorite. I'm glad they, resolved that and had an X-Men 2 moment, unfortunately, but Iceman. But anyway, make sure you hit the subscribe button, comment, like, and share, and to let us know your thoughts down below. Make sure you also follow Phil's channel. His link will be in the description box below as well. And tune in that next time and hit the notification bell for our next upload. We got a ton of CinemaCon coverage, interviews as well that'll be dropping, and also presentations, panels that will be posted as well from CinemaCon. All right, guys. See you guys next video. Peace.